I was just 8 years old when I first began to listen to the stories of my relatives, my grand aunt Florence Horn, and she would sit with my great grandmother Leola. I would leave my grandmother's house just up the road, my grandmother Irene, and walk the trail to Big Mama's door, where I was met by the warmth of these two women, my great grandmother and her daughter Florence. And they were talking and cooking, washing, cleaning, and in between weaving these incredible stories into me that would shape my future and shape who I would become. These old photographs became my treasure maps. I would pore over them asking, who is this and what did they do and how did this come about? And seeing pictures of my mother and so many of my living relatives while they were children or as they were children. This was an incredible time for me, and I learned about all the different siblings of my grandmother, the mean ones, the stingy ones, the great ones, the funny ones, and all of their personalities. I just really fell in love with my ancestors and the people that came before me. Next door lived Uncle A.B., one of my grandmother's younger brothers, and he fed the animals in the barn and on the farm, and I would accompany him from time to time, whether it was the hogs or the horses or chickens or pigs, whatever it was. And I learned so much about caring for animals, and I think that's where I developed a great respect for animals. And I'm very appreciative of Uncle A.B. for that time. For me, he was a great friend when I was a little kid. Years later, Uncle L.K. would tell me the story of the house that burned down in the family house, and the incredible sadness and trauma that was experienced by the family. And I know from my mother recanting the story and other relatives like Roselle and Aunt Myrie telling me about this experience, it was so traumatic to them because they lost everything. When I was 15, I would drive to my grand aunt Rosalie's house and ask her about her mother and grandmother, the Hardens, the Browns, the Jacksons, and the Moses, and she would tell me everything that she knew. The stories were so vivid and so alive. I had so much respect for my Aunt Rosalie, as well as many of the men and women who were leaders in the church and leaders in our community. They poured their qualities into me, and those qualities took root. One of my all-time favorites was my grand uncle Horace, my great-grandfather's second oldest son, and he would talk with me and share so many stories and take me on a tour of the land, 800 to 1,000 acres, and tell me about the experiences they had. Some of them were horror stories that they had to overcome, and others were these incredible stories of accomplishment and ingenuity and making life happen for them and how they survived. I developed such respect for my elders and for those that came before me. And so I say to you, those of you that are interested in learning more, ask questions, seek out elders, find out what they know so that you are able to share that information with your children, with your people. For it is in the past that we find the keys to the future. And through the wisdom of those who came before, we become more of who we are meant to be. Listen, learn, carry it forward. For me, having this information has unlocked many doors. You know, sometimes people experience hardships that become trauma, and that trauma is passed down to generation after generation without you really knowing its origin. This is the whole premise behind breaking generational curses. Knowing so much about my past and my family's past has helped me understand myself in the times I've needed to understand myself most. So get to know your family's past, because it is key to unlocking your present and giving you a brighter, healthier future.